Well, welcome back. I'm still Jacob Rees Mogg, and this is still Save the Nation. So Labour has unveiled plans to make it easier to deport and deny asylum to foreign nationals convicted of sexual offences. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said, "We are restoring order to a broken asylum system that has been mired in delay and dysfunction for far too long, and we are strengthening our system to make sure that the rules are respected and enforced. Sex offenders who pose a risk to the community should not be allowed to benefit from refugee protections in the UK. We are strengthening the law to ensure these appalling crimes are taken seriously." Under the current law, only those jailed for over a year can be deported under the Refugee Convention. Labour wants to expand this to include anyone on the sex offenders register or considered a threat to public safety. However, offenders will still have the ability to make claims under the ECHR. Is this finally a step in the right direction, or is it too little, too late? Well, joining me now is someone who knows a great deal about this subject and is a friend of the programme, the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. Suella, first of all, thank you very much for coming in. This is good news, isn't it? We're going to get rid of sex offenders. They're not going to have Refugee Convention rights. And if they've committed any sex crime, even if it's under a year sentence, they'll be on the plane.
Superficially, it's very good news. But I know you can't fool GBNews viewers very easily. And I don't think they'll be fooled by what we've heard from Yvette Cooper today. Because frankly, first of all, it's no coincidence that this announcement has been made a couple of days before the local elections, where Labour are struggling to maintain their support. And secondly, frankly, it's not worth the paper it's written on. If claimants and the foreign criminals are still able to bring human rights claims or claim protection under the European Convention of Human Rights, it will mean nothing whatsoever.
Will it mean something, though, that not everybody will be able to bring a human rights claim? There will be some cases that are really very clear that people have come here, they've committed a sexual offence, they'll be out pretty quickly, particularly bogus asylum seekers can be removed quickly and efficiently if they are sex offenders. And not all of them will be able to claim some family background or whatever it is that gives them human rights protections.
The problem with that hope is that the human rights laws are so expansive, so accessible. Foreign criminals can get a lawyer paid for by the taxpayer on legal aid, and they can put in claim after claim and appeal after appeal based on all sorts of different and often fabricated claims related to human rights. And so even if there's going to be a limitation on some of their claims here or there, fundamentally, no judge is going to disallow a foreign criminal from relying on Article 3 of the European Convention of Human Rights, the right against torture, inhumane or degrading treatment, which has been distorted beyond all recognition.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C-18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GBNews discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GBNews to start protecting yourself digitally today.
OK, because you as Home Secretary would not have wanted to send people back to be tortured, would you, or to have degrading treatment. So that then becomes a balance of whether you think the level of risk is high enough to allow somebody who's committed an offence to stay. And who ultimately should decide that? Should it be the courts? Is it essentially a legal matter, or is it essentially a political matter?
Listen, ministers should have the power to make a decision, or those acting on behalf of ministers. But the problem is with Article 3 and the protection against torture is that it's now been stretched so much. So, for example, we were not able to deport a Jamaican rapist back to Jamaica, convicted in this country and duly tried, because he suddenly discovered that he was bisexual, despite the fact that his victims were female. And if we were to have deported him to Jamaica, he said that that would be degrading treatment and torture. There's a case that really people should be reminded of. Fabian Henry was a convicted sex offender, quite serious offences of a child. And the last government tried to deport him back to Jamaica. We weren't able to because of campaigning Labour MPs who said it would be a violation of his human rights. Who was one of those campaigning Labour MPs who signed a letter? Keir Starmer. So not only is this an unrealistic plan which won't survive contact with reality, which is our human rights laws, but the hypocrisy of the government, namely Keir Starmer, who has previously campaigned to stop the deportation of foreign criminals, is staggering.
Yvette Cooper's other point is that it's basically our fault, that we were in for 14 years, she inherited a broken system and is trying to do something that may improve it. You're saying at the margins she thinks fundamentally. You think that's fair, don't you? Because that's part of the reason you left the government, is you thought we simply weren't doing enough. So her criticism of us, you would broadly accept.
Listen, I have to accept that as a Conservative government, we failed to stop the boats. We failed to clamp down on illegal migration sufficiently. We didn't do what was necessary because there was a lack of political will. We should have left the European Convention of Human Rights when we had the majority to do so. We should have scrapped the Human Rights Act when we had the majority to do so. That we didn't when we had the opportunity is a source of regret.
And do you think there is any way of stopping illegal migration and removal of sex offenders short of leaving the ECHR? Could you do it by derogation from certain aspects, or is it necessary to leave the whole thing? Because Denmark seems to have done very well in restricting migration, and it remains subject both to the European Charter of Fundamental Rights and to the ECHR.
Well, I think we have a particular context here in the UK. We have not only the ECHR and the politicised interventionist Strasbourg court, which we saw in action when we were trying to get the flights off to Rwanda, and they grounded them at the 11th hour. But we also have the Human Rights Act, which exacerbates the problem. So we've domesticated it. We also have an activist legal profession and an activist judiciary to a degree, where we've seen constant cases of, frankly, left-wing immigration judges making ludicrous judgments on immigration claims. So we don't have a system. Taking all those factors together, we are not like just any other European country. We have a particular set of exacerbating factors. I do believe that derogation won't work because the legal test for derogation is extremely high. Tony Blair couldn't even derogate from the European Convention of Human Rights in the aftermath of 9/11 when he wanted to enact security measures to tackle Islamist terrorists in the UK. If that wasn't even sufficient to derogate from the ECHR, and I would have said that would have been a crisis time, national security issues, we won't be able to justify derogation on the legal basis as it stands in the ECHR.
So all the announcement by politicians, whether they're Tory or Labour, will be mere window dressing unless they make that fundamental choice, repeal the Human Rights Act, leave the European Convention.
Yes, as long as we are still within the orbit of the jurisdiction of the European Court of Human Rights, we are subject to their case law. We are subjected to their judges and their judgments, and we don't have proper sovereignty over our laws and in particular over our borders.
Suella, thank you very much for coming in.